Almost everyone loves a good laugh, and joining us now to help explore why humor is such a very serious business, in Little Rock, Arkansas, Scott Weems, cognitive neuroscientist and the author of The Science of When We Laugh and Why. In Calgary, Alberta, Eva P. She is the founder of Zeds Comic Communication, a company that specializes in bringing more humor into people's lives. And with us here in studio, Kenny Robinson, stand-up comic and founder of the Nubian Disciples All-Black Comedy Review, and Carolyn Bennett, stand-up comic and a writer for This Hour Has 22 Minutes and the NHL Awards, and I'm already frightened about the direction this program is taking. Just before we went on the air, I'm telling you, if they were rolling a camera on this stuff,
Derek.
This would have been a scream. This would be a funny, funny show. The Comedy Channel will be all over us already. Scott, I want to start with you because I want to get some neuroscientific basis for our conversation before we get completely out of control here, which is, how did our evolutionary move to meat-eating beings help create humor?
Oh, wow, yeah, we start with a challenging one, I guess. Yeah, really, I think humor kind of developed along with people and societies. And not to get too technical, but it all has to do with a chemical called dopamine. This is a chemical in our brain, and it's basically our pleasure center. It's what we get that we like. So you get bursts of dopamine when you sadly, when you do cocaine, also when you eat chocolate, and when you get jokes. Jokes increases dopamine in our brain. And we think that dopamine is kind of this chemical which we've really harnessed and gotten hold of just as society advanced, and we become thrill seekers in lots of different ways, including with how much we look for humor. So humor is a very basic natural high.
Do people who do coke know that they could just tell a few jokes and, save themselves a lot of headache?
Yeah, it's a lot less addictive too, so that's probably a good thing. Yeah, I think they would all do better if they switched to humor instead.
Gotcha. Who was Norman Cousins?
Yeah, Norman Cousins is an interesting guy. He, in early 1960s, he got a really bad collagen disease and was essentially given a no-life prognosis. Diagnosis. They said, you're looking pretty bad, you're not going to make it. And so what he did is he decided to ignore the doctors and just start laughing. Derek. And he used humor to try and get in a better mood. And eventually he basically laughed himself out of the illness. Now, I wouldn't say that laughter was the only thing that contributed to his health. We know that a lot of other things probably make a difference, and I would never tell somebody they should laugh instead of seeking actual medical treatment. But at the same time, I think his example sets an important precedent to let us know that just as bad emotions and anxiety have bad influences over us, having a good sense of humor and being able to laugh, that's pretty good too. So it's got some pretty good health benefits. I
want to pursue this line of humor and health, but one more question first to you, Scott, and that is, the Cousins story, which you just told us, how does that contrast with the research of another fellow by the name of Howard Friedman?
Yeah, almost completely, which is a shame. Howard Friedman is another researcher. He did a fascinating study, and to give you the short version, what he found is that people with good senses of humor, they don't live longer than everybody else. And in fact, it might just be the opposite, that having a really robust sense of humor actually shortens your lifespan, doesn't make it longer, which is obviously very sad and frustrating, and actually contrary, since we know that laughing has a lot of good heart benefits and immune system benefits too. And the problem is that people with good senses of humor do other things too, like drink and smoke and lots of other sometimes very fun things that I don't know I'd want to live without. So the trick is to enjoy humor and enjoy laughing, but kind of use it responsibly, I guess, just, like anything else.
Here's a comment from your book, an excerpt from your book that I'll read and then get everybody else to comment on, which is, humor is a form of exercise, keeping our minds healthy the same way that physical exertion helps our bodies. But like jogging in a smog-filled tunnel, humor used improperly can do more harm than good. Carolyn, do you think comedy's kept you healthy?
It's kept me alive. I've used it as a defense mechanism. I've used it to cope in very bad situations, and I've used it to make a living. So I'm just thrilled that I'm not going to live very long because I haven't saved enough money for retirement. So
you believe the Friedman study, which is that the more you laugh, the quicker you're going to die?
It depends on who you are. If you're a consumer of comedy and you're laughing away, I think you're going to live a long and healthy life. If you're a producer of comedy, the stress of having to produce that comedy, that's that might take its toll after a while.
Kenny, how about you on that one? Do you think comedy keeps you healthy?
Comedy, I don't know if it keeps me that healthy. I mean, it's definitely led to 2 of my marriages dissolving, so can't call that a good thing. And they say the funny people don't necessarily live that long. George Burns is 100, so he must not have been that funny. But I think, though, that if humor is cheaper than healthcare, then I think definitely they need to get rid of Obamacare and just hire more comedians.
Now, what do you mean comedy has cost you 2 marriages?
Well, many times you'll say I would say something to whoever was my wife at the time, thinking it was funny, and I didn't know it was just chipping away at that brick of love you. So I became less humorous to her as I found myself further out the door.
Gotcha. As you found yourself further out the door.
Yeah.
Would you rather be funnier or married her?
I'd rather be funny. So, yeah, you get more wives if you're funny. And if you're really funny, you don't have to keep them. It's good.
But are you 0 for 2 in the wife department right now?
0 for 2.
Working on 3?
No.
Working on 4, 5, 6.
No, I think I'm pretty much done with that.
Gotcha. Scott, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what kind of humor you're using. I mean, I think most humor is really good and healthy, and this is a good thing. But I mean, there's also like the Rodney Dangerfield kind of self-insulting humor. That might not be as good, so it might be depending on how you use it. So I'd say most humor is good, but there might be some kinds you want to avoid, but that's rare, I would say.
Give me an example. What would you want to avoid?
Well, I mean, I use Rodney Dangerfield as an example. I mean, he lived a pretty good life, so maybe he made a pretty good living out of it.
I was going to say, why would you want to avoid Rodney's humor? He was hilarious.
Yeah.
And he was known for doing lots of chocolate.
Lots of chocolate.
That humor done badly can be bad. I mean, I think Rodney Dangerfield maybe is the exception. He's pretty good, but most of us, if we tried that, wouldn't succeed.
Well, I'm thinking of John Bennett, who just died this week.
Age of 50.
Age of 50. Well, he'd joke about being overweight, and it was a defense, and he was hilarious, and he was beloved, but he's also dead. So that's one of the reasons that I stopped doing stand-up comedy, touring across the country, because I just developed a wicked addiction.
To what?
To everything. To alcohol, to drugs, and it almost killed me. Yeah, so I had to kind of pedal away from it and take some time off and to regroup and realize there's a lot more money in writing comedy. So I became more of a writer.
Eva, let me get you into this conversation to talk about health and humor. And to that end, tell us about the Cheers project that you're working on in Calgary.
Well, the Cheers project is actually the base on which we built Zeds comic communication. The Cheers project started in 1995 by a man named Derek Wilkin. He approached the city of Calgary and asked them if he could introduce the notion of teaching panhandlers how to improve their speaking skills by telling jokes and thereby increasing the amount of money they draw toward them. Of course, the city said, hey, we're trying to discourage that, Derek, but how about this project? And Derek ended up teaching 15 severely persistent individuals that presented with mental illness. I think it was 16 weeks. Each one of the participants were paired with a social worker or a psychologist. They wrote a routine that resulted in a 5-minute set that they performed at Yuck Yucks here in Calgary about their situation, their life. And the Cheers Project went on to build a legacy teaching the skills of stand-up comedy to people who come from diverse backgrounds or have learning disabilities or humor issues. And then finally they made their way into corporations, and everybody was saying, hey, when are you going to teach a normal class? We all know that there is no normal. And the Cheers Project introduced their philosophy to mainstream, and from there, the rest is history. And they ended up doing quite a bit of work with the Epilepsy Society, and in fact, the University of Calgary produced a few research papers based on that work.
Eva, that's fascinating. Why do you think it works?
I think, some people might say that individuals use humor in order to avoid their problems, and I'm of the mind that when I use humor to own the joke that is my life, I actually make space to deal with what's in front of me. I don't lose my problem, but I gain perspective. For the participants that were in the epilepsy programs, a lot of what they reported was an ease in communicating about epilepsy and how it affects their life, using humor as a bridge. So when I laugh and you laugh, I tell you a funny story about myself. we get, of course, that endorphin hit. Everybody lightens up a little bit, and I have permission to continue the conversation.
Okay, Carolyn, you're also doing something in the serious business of comedy, which is you're doing presentations on mental health issues and the like?
I do some presentations. I mostly talk about addictions and recovery and having fun. I've been sober now for about 12 years. Had to give up all the substances, and for a while I thought, my life is over, that's it, it's done. But it has come back. I have my wits about me, my faculties about me to a certain extent, and I just take that message out to businesses, to corporations. I've done some touring, speaking on the issues of addiction and being healthy and sober and having fun without mood-altering substances, and that comes from laughing and having fun.
Okay, but honestly, didn't you think you were funnier when you were high?
Other people may have. Other people who were high said, you know, you were a lot funnier when I was drunk. Yeah, but it's because you were drunk. You know, just listen unadulterated and you'll be fine. So, got to ask you something, Steve. Are my roots showing? Are they showing, Steve? They're showing over my whole head, I think.
Did you dye your hair gray for this program? That's what
Executive blonde, just for the agenda.
Executive blonde.
Yes.
Emmy Lou Harris thing kind of happened.
We're grateful.
Yeah.
We're grateful.
Yeah.
That's good. Kenny, let me follow up with the Laugh Factory, which is this place in L.A. You played there? You've played there a lot of times.
I've played there a couple of times, yeah.
Apparently, they have an in-house therapy program.
They need one.
Well,
I mean,
it raises the serious issue of, do you think comedians, compared to the general population, do have more mental health issues?
oh, we've got all kinds of issues. We need accountants. We need lawyers. We need all kinds of counselors. So Mitzi Shore at the Comedy Store, she even had like a rehab thing set up for the comics that were getting into all kinds of the bad stuff during the comedy boom days. So
What is it about the life that kind of encourages that?
I don't know if the life encourages it or just that people that have these issues just tend to get drawn into it, you know. I think it's more than that. I mean, there aren't a lot of comics shooting up malls or movie theaters, so you can't say we're all depressed or we're all psychotic. But
the ones who are gravitate towards comedy because, you know, there's bars. I mean, it's a great venue if you're an addict to work in.
But there's also, I guess, instant validation from an audience for what you do.
It's the ultimate high.
Yeah.
Like that's it. With
There's
all
the science behind it.
Okay.
There's the science behind it too. Studies have shown that people who are a little neurotic are the funniest people. They have the best senses of humor, and that's science. So
Scott,
yeah,
how do you
actually,
define
it's okay
a
to
little
be
bit neurotic?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all on a continuum, right? Somewhere between very stable and very neurotic. So I wouldn't say you'd want to be all the way on the far right of that scale, but, you know, we're all somewhere in between. And it winds up where people with the best senses of humor tend to be a little more neurotic than the general population. And I think that's a good thing. It's healthy to be a little bit on edge.
Eva P., where are you on that continuum?
Where am I?
Yeah.
Well, as Scott alluded to, we are on a continuum always, right? So today I could be a little more right, tomorrow a little more left. It just depends. Also, it depends who's in the room and what time of the month it is.
Okay, moving right along.
What time of the month is it, Steve?
I think it's
closer to the rent
10th.
being due, I get funnier.
I think it's
Yeah.
April 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be early in the month, I think.
When the child support's due, I get funnier.
Yes.
Gotta make that
Exactly.
grid.
Okay, Scott, let me bring you in with what do you find most interesting about cultural or ethnic divides in comedy?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them, I guess. I mean, everybody knows British tastes tend to be a little more dry and maybe absurd in humor, and Americans like our humor aggressive, more assertive and pushy. And I think that says something about the people. People have looked at this all over. That, you know, the more passive the culture, the more passive the jokes. So I think then that's another way where it's okay to be a little bit, you know, aggressive and pushy in your humor. It means you like some edge. And I think you can also see some differences between gender taste and humor too. Like, there's not many women who like Three Stooges, but you know, that's one kind of difference in humor taste as well. It seems like most men I know like that kind of humor. So it all says a little bit about our tastes.
Women tend to hate the Stooges.
I love the Stooges.
So
Oh,
what does
good.
that say
Okay,
about
good.
you?
What does
we
that
just
say?
don't. We don't
Good.
want our guys to spend time watching the Stooges when they could be watching us.
Ah,
Well,
You
point.
just want to get poked in the eye.
no, but like the movie Dumb and Dumber.
yes.
I think that is one of the funniest movies ever made because it's so stupid. When people complain, oh, well, that movie was so stupid. Yes, that's the point of it. It's sort of like we can all relax and just be out there and just really enjoy this very physical, absurd kind of comedy. Like
But let me
it's-
get you onto culture here. You're from Montreal originally?
Yes, I am.
You're a Montreal Anglophone.
Je suis un anglophone.
Okay.
Je suis une tête carrée.
Excellent, madame. Okay. Is there anything particularly that you find funny about the French-English divide in Quebec?
I just wrote a screenplay called the Mac and Watson Springtime Referendum Show, and it's all about Montreal in 1980. And there's English girls and French guys, skinheads and punks coming together and trying to figure out the cultural divide between the two. It's a comedy. It won the TIFF Screenwriting Intensive Jury Prize last year. When I lived there, because I grew up in an English enclave, going out like past St. Denis Street was, oh my God, foreign
Pointless.
territory. Pointless. I was lost. I would, as long as I had a baguette and was wearing a beret, I felt safe.
And smoking.
And Jetan,
If you
and
smoke,
Brador.
if you're smoking, they'll give you directions.
Yes, and chugging the Brador. The scene was thriving in the early 80s, the mid
Brador.
80s.
That's a really old reference. That's a
Brador,
great
I know,
reference.
I know.
You used to be on
I know.
airlines in the Maritimes too.
Brador?
Yeah.
6.5.
Well,
6.5
there's a chances of it
alcohol.
landing out of 10.
The
Yeah, that's
Brador. We should tell Scott that's a kind of Molson beer, right?
Yeah,
From
that
back in the
was
day?
that was a
Okay.
pretty skunky beer.
Sorry, you lost me a while back.
Yeah, that's, we're going to try and get you back in here, Scott. Kenny, you did a show in Johannesburg once upon a time, right?
I was booked there at a comedy club for 3 weeks. We did some of the gigs in the casinos and what have you.
Did you have to tailor the material
Well-
given the location you
Well,
were in?
first of all, I always loved doing topical material. So at the time, every day in South Africa, something new is happening. What we call a political scandal is nothing over there. The President Zuma, he had been charged or accused of rape, but no charges, and the woman apparently had HIV, and he said he didn't have to wear a condom because he took a shower. And all these years, I put that shower cap on my head. So there's all kinds of material for that. But then some of the sexual material I did just had them running for the doors. So then I got to think of, very uptight kind of society. So, and then I was thinking about who I was offending, and weren't many of the blacks in the audience I was offending. So then I had to think, well, it's my nature. Then I had to remember that the whole idea of one man, one vote was relatively new to them. So
Complicated. Sounds complicated.
It's very many things that were complicated. But once I found out that I started writing more material towards their culture and their society, the more they embraced me.
Even when you tell people, if you don't have one or aren't one, don't talk about it, does that pertain to cultural differences as well?
Well, specifically, that's what I would say to somebody who's new to learning the skills of stand-up comedy. I want to include comedy and humor in their speaking because part of our philosophy is we want you to own the joke that is your life first. So that's the psychology on our end, rather than go out there poking fun at whatever and just trying to be another observational comic. It definitely does refer to cultural divides as well as religious beliefs and shoe size.
Is there stuff you won't touch?
Is there stuff I won't touch?
Yeah, in terms of humor, jokes, areas of poking
you know
away?
what? If I have an experience with something, I will touch it. I will touch it to no end. What I'm saying is that I'm not gonna, get on stage and do jokes about performing in South Africa, because I haven't. I've never been there. Kenny and I have never had lunch. I don't know what it's like. I have no reference point. So I'm not going to talk about what it's like to be a Jew, because I'm not a Jew. I could talk about what it's like to have Jews as clients, because we do right now. I can talk about what it's like to work with political individuals, because I do. So wherever my experience touches, I can talk about it. But, to be clear, the reason that we have that guideline is because we work with people that are new to comedy and the skills of comedy, and to kind of corral them and force them into owning the joke that is their life, that's why we bring that piece in. And also it really helps, no offense, Kenny, with the guys in the room, because they often want to use, you know,
We're fine with that.
they always want to use biology of the other sex in their routine. So I say, you don't have one, don't talk about it. But you can talk about, you know, your experience.
Right. Now, Eva, when you were in the middle of that and you were talking about the Jews you could make fun of because you had experience with them, Kenny, you said, you can't do that, that's hate speech.
No, I didn't say that. I said that if I wanted to make fun of what it's like working with Jews, I can do that.
Exactly,
because
okay.
I have Jewish clients.
Okay, but then Kenny came up with this, and I mean, the only reason I'm raising it here is that you've put your finger on presumably how difficult it can be to be funny when political correctness is as hard as it is today. Is that right?
It's taken a lot of the joy out of being funny. You know, it's and that's been since I guess the late '80s. There was a whole PC movement, and it's gotten worse. But I mean, but then again, there's also been a need to pull some things back, like with the young comics out on the circuit now. Rape jokes and rape culture. It seems like the less experience the comic has, the more they're crying about their freedom of speech to do rape jokes.
And that's probably, you're saying that's a good thing that we've pulled back.
Well,
do less of that.
It's immaturity on their part. Like as young comics, they're just trying to push the boundaries. You know, they're trying to push the boundaries.
Yeah,
they're trying to make a name.
They're going to talk about everything below the waist, right?
Yeah, and it's just a sign of immaturity. But I do admire when people want to take risks, and I think a comedy club, I think they should be like safety zones for anything goes.
Anything?
Not hate speech.
Well, even hate speech.
No.
Just because it's hateful doesn't mean it can't be funny.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
Scott, come on
I
in.
think, yeah, I mean, I agree with the sentiment. I mean, there's different kinds of risky jokes. I mean, sometimes there's no point other than to be hateful, but sometimes there's a deeper message. And it comes down to the fact that, I mean, there's the saying, if you want to make a point, tell a story. But if you want to make more than one point at once, you tell a joke. And so it really depends. If it's really humor and you're actually trying to be funny, you're not actually espousing the racism or sexism or whatever is being said. You're making a broader statement about it. And so you talk about rape jokes. I mean, Daniel Tosh, I don't know if you know about him, but he got in a lot of trouble for that. But I don't think he was actually advocating rape. I think he was making a broader statement about it. And that's the trick. It matters. It really depends on intent.
Scott, while you've got the floor, let me ask you about Colin Firth, the Academy Award-winning actor, who did apparently a science experiment to find the differences between liberals and conservatives. You talk about it.
Yeah.
What did he find?
Yeah, this is interesting. It turns out that Democrats or I shouldn't say Democrats, liberals and conservatives have different kinds of brains. You know, this is a very general statement, but it turns out that people who are more liberally minded have larger anterior cingulates, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for detecting conflict. It's essentially the part of our brain that's very active if we're trying to make sense of something that initially doesn't make sense or is confusing to us. Whereas people who are more conservative-minded, they have larger amygdala, which is more of an emotional center, particularly as it regards fear. So that might say something deeper, and these are both areas that are very important for humor too. Humor is all about some sort of initial conflict and then that good emotional feeling that follows when you resolve it at the punchline. And so this might also say something about you know, political interest and in general how we look at issues. We might look at it sometimes from more of a cognitive dissonance standpoint, or we might look at it emotionally. The two sides of joke telling as well, but here we're talking about politics.
Let's follow up on politics with Eva, because I gather you're doing some comedy coaching for the Wild Rose Party in Alberta. How's that going?
Yeah, our history in working with politicians and humor and helping them goes back to before 2000, and with municipal politics here. We worked with NDP, we worked with the Liberal Party here. And yes, there is a Liberal Party here, and we've also, yes, Wild Rose approached us after what it looked like they were going to actually earn a win here, and that didn't happen, and so it sort of really brought down the party, and they were sort of suffering from that kind of that grief, you know, where you're grieving what could have been, and it was a great way to bring the group together. We worked with some of their supporters, and we involved 4 non-Wild Rose supporters, and we put them all on stage together. It was a fundraiser for them. So the money they earned actually, lifted their spirits, and they were able to take kind of that defeat and turn it into something positive, and also poke fun at themselves and listen to what their non-supporters think of them. So it's very interesting. That was the first year. And then last year we did, they'd like to do this as an annual event. So last year in the fall we did that again. Now we had a couple of their MLAs in that had been elected. It was a little more boisterous, and we had 10 Wild Rose supporters on stage. Again, they, to a sold out show. And it really, I think they needed to step into that ring where they could own some of that stuff. The Lake of Fire.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about.
That kind of thing.
Let me ask you about that directly, because, of course, nobody thought it was terribly funny when one of the Wild Rose candidates in the last election said that, gays in Alberta ought to burn in a lake of fire and that type of thing, and the leader's refusal to disassociate herself from that candidate, obviously, I guess many people think cost her the election. Do they make fun of that kind of stuff at these gatherings?
No. No, they don't. In fact, I mean, the politics around that moment and the choices that were made at the moment, I have no, I have no insight to. But no, they mostly made fun of themselves. A lot of the Wild Rose supporters are Mormon. So they did a lot of Mormon jokes, which was interesting because I don't know if you know, but Mormons, they don't normally hang out at comedy clubs, so for a lot of them, it was the first time they were inside of a bar. So it's kind of interesting. They would make fun of the stereotypes towards Mormons. So they were, they listened, they owned the joke. That was their lives, because once you own it, nobody can use it against you.
Gotcha.
So we definitely, we're pretty outspoken too, and personally I'm not on record as supporting any political party. None of them will have me as a member anyway.
Okay, Groucho, we like that. Eva, we got to say goodbye to you because we're about to lose a satellite in 2 minutes. So thank you so much for joining us tonight on TVO.
I enjoyed the book, Scott. Thank you.
Did the men leave their wives at home when the Mormons came? Did they leave all their wives at home? Or?
No, they brought all of them.
Scott. My goodness, Kenny. My goodness, Kenny.
Oh, my.
Carolyn, you've done some writing for politicians. You want to talk about that?
Do I have to?
You don't have to do anything you don't want to.
Yes, I was asked to write jokes for a certain politician, which I was more than glad to do.
You want to say who it was?
It was Dalton McGuinty. I was a speechwriter for the Premier. I was working in Cabinet Office, so I was on the civil service side, and I think that's one of the reasons I was hired. I didn't know anyone in politics. I didn't know anyone in government. I actually applied online for this job. So I beat out about 500 other candidates.
Qualified people.
Yeah, way more qualified, way more.
Never mind the people with political connections.
Yeah, I knew nothing.
Nepotism. What happened there?
Yeah, whatever happened to nepotism?
I noticed you're wearing red today.
Do you like this? It's pretty fabulous, eh? I got it.
Is Dalton McGuinty funny?
He blushes easy.
He blushes easy. He's funny when he's away from everybody. Maybe he's funny in the shower. I don't know.
He got really funny after he resigned.
Well, I cannot comment. All I know is I met him once. I only met him once in 3.5 years. And I remember he walked into the boardroom and he said, "Okay, which one of you wrote for 22 minutes?" And I said, "Well, I did, sir." And he said, "Give me wacky."
Dalton McGuinty and wacky.
Yeah, two don't go together, do they?
You wouldn't think.
No. So the one thing that really amazed me and shocked me was they'd ask me to write a joke, so I would craft a joke, because I'm a comedian, I'm a joke writer, and, they'd say, "Oh, no, just get something off the internet. We don't have time."
So steal somebody else's riff.
Steal somebody else's riff.
You wouldn't do that.
Of course not. It's asking a comic to steal.
Sure. Can you recall a line you wrote for him that actually was funny and worked?
Yeah, it made it into that Gazette-y thing that they have, like the
Frank?
best of. Not Frank. No, it's like the Queen's Park Gazette, or I don't remember.
The Gazette-y thing.
That Gazette, that newslettery thing around Queen's
You better
Park.
take more pride in your credits. Yeah, I had something published in the Gazette-y thing.
Do you remember the joke?
No, I don't.
No.
I write.
Did you find? Did he lift it off the page when you wrote jokes for him?
Apparently, at times, yes. But then they just say, no, we can't do this. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. It was kind of like working on the Mike Bullard show. No, all these good bits are gone. No, okay, get out there and do the
And then he asked you
lamest
if you
stuff
knew how to
possible.
delete things from computers.
Yeah, you know.
Kenny, you are so sardonic. Listen to you. Have you ever written for politicians?
No, I'd love to. I wish our mayor would hire me now.
Oh, yes. Now we're
I could justify everything he's done.
yes. Maybe you'll be on the election team.
Well, I don't know if I want it. Well,
You and Ben Johnson.
well, I could write something for Ben, but I don't know if he could read it.
That's so nasty. That's so nasty.
I've heard stories about Ben. Like one time, apparently they went out for breakfast, and the waitress asked him, "How would you like your eggs?" And he said, "Big." So I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what I heard. But no, I myself would never vote for Rob Ford, but I adore him.
Yeah, all
I
comics
mean,
adore
he's
Rob Ford.
you know, he brought the circus to town, and I don't want the circus to end. Now, would I want to vote for him? No. I live in Mississauga, where we've got Hazel, who's been in office since Jesus had 3 apostles, and she's stepping out now.
There's a job opening up, Kenny.
Well, to run, I got too many skeletons. I've got stuff to make Rob Ford go. Maybe if you ignore it, it'll go away. But
I have a feeling if I didn't bring the gavel down, you two could go on for quite some time. Ken, we thank Scott Weems, out of town in Little Rock, Arkansas, for being the author of The Science of When We Laugh. We thank Eva P. already, who was on the line from Calgary, and our 2 guests here in studio, Carolyn Bennett, or as we like to call her around here, the other Carolyn Bennett, not the Member of Parliament, and Kenny Robinson, the great stand-up comic. And we thank both of you for coming into TVO tonight.
thank you.
Thank you.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.